the Ten Commandments, or today I want to take a look at the Ten Commandments. You know, those commandments found in Exodus and Deuteronomy, which some Americans want to put up in every school and which most of us probably think we should keep, maybe even are keeping, without really knowing what they are. Today I'll use the version in Exodus. There are slight variations, and the New International Version translation. Now this is Exodus chapter 20 verses 2 to 17. So let's go through them. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before, or maybe beside, me. Okay, well, I guess we know God's priorities. I did this thing for you, now you owe me. Very transactional, very Trumpian. Of course, the commandments developed in a polytheistic world. The general consensus was that there were lots of gods around. But the God of the Israelites was to be exclusively Yahweh. Either they were to worship no other gods at all, besides, or they could have other gods, but none held in higher status before Yahweh. How are you doing with that one? I can honestly say I have no other gods. I don't have Yahweh either, but at least I don't have other gods. Oh, I can hear the comments already about how obviously I worship this or that. I don't. Commandment number 2 goes like this. It's a bit long-winded. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Okay, still with God then. No images at all, right? That's what it seems to say. There have been some Jewish and Christian traditions that have interpreted this strictly. No images at all of anything. Islam, although it developed the idea independently of the commandments, does in fact forbid all images. Some Jews and Christians have, I suppose, erred on the side of caution and forbidden all images in order to avoid even the possibility, even the temptation towards idolatry. Let's assume, though, that it's the second part that really matters, the bowing down to and worshipping of these images. There was probably a lot of that going on at the time. How are we doing with that one? Well, I think some branches of the Christian church have been a little lax about enforcing that particular commandment, not naming any names. Then there's a whole jealousy thing. At least God admits to being jealous. Remember, you shall have no other God besides me. Again, this is very transactional. You do that, you bow down to any of these idols, and I'll punish not only you, but your descendants to the 3rd and 4th generation. But love me and keep my commandments, and you and your descendants to thousands of generations will do just fine. So I guess that gives us a pretty clear idea of what divine justice looks like. Oh, and I think I'm doing pretty well with that one. No bowing down here. Okay, so now number 3. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name, or takes it in vain, I think was the older version. Okay, still thinking about yourself then, God? God, this is a tough one. I'm probably not doing so well with this one. This may be mainly about blasphemy, using God or related terms as a curse word. Yeah, I'm not so good on that one. If it's about using God's name lightly, again, I'll put my hand up. If it's more about swearing oaths in God's name, well, that one hasn't really come up for me yet. If I were being sworn in as a witness in court, I wouldn't swear on the Bible. I'd opt for the secular affirmation. Okay, number 4 then. Anything about people yet? About how they should relate to each other? Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy. So, still mostly about you then, God. I could be generous and say that this is about people giving themselves time off and giving their servants time off. But really it's about giving a day to you, isn't it, God? Dedicating a whole day to you. This can't have worked very well, I don't think. How do you stop your chickens from laying eggs on Saturday? But anyway, this one has pretty much gone by the board these days. But hang on a minute, is God commanding me to work 6 days a week? I don't want to work 6 days a week, bugger that. Maybe I should be following the commandments of Henry Ford instead. You shall work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Yeah, that's better. Okay, we're up to number 5 now. Surely this will have something to say about how humans should behave towards each other. Honour your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Well, at least it's not about you-know-who. And okay, fair enough. Honour your parents. Of course, you can always ask, what do I do if my parents are assholes? What should I do if they're abusing me? Fair enough questions, but there are always going to be exceptions to any moral principle that you or I or God proposes. In general, the command to honour your parents is not objectionable. Note, though, that now we're getting down to the human interaction stuff. God is somewhat less expansive. Maybe this doesn't interest him as much as the other stuff. Number 6, then. You shall not murder. Okay, thanks for that, but I'd kind of figured that one out on my own. Again, not much expansion here, and if any of the commandments could do with some expansion and elucidation, it's this one. Clearly, this is not a blanket commandment not to kill. Hence, this translation uses the more nuanced translation, murder. Now, I say this can't be a blanket commandment not to kill because subsequently, on multiple occasions, God commands the Israelites to kill lots of people, men, women, and children. The word ratzak, I have no idea whether I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is used here for kill or murder, seems to refer to unlawful, premeditated, intentional killing of another person, things like homicide, manslaughter, and assassination. Basically, it's about the taking of human life out of malice, anger, or self-interest. It's distinct, for instance, from the more general term for kill, which is harag. Essentially, ratzak is distinct from other kinds of killing which may be regarded as lawful or even mandated, as in war or capital punishment. So there's a hell of a lot of wriggle room in this commandment, which people have been using ever since. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. No expansion here. The word refers specifically to an act committed within marriage, so it has no bearing on any other kind of sexual activity between non-married people. I don't have much to add here, really. Number 8, you shall not steal. Unless you're pillaging your enemy, I suppose. Number 9, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbour. Fair enough, I can see how that might be naughty. Number 10, you shall not covet your neighbour's house. You shall not covet your neighbour's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbour. Okay, so it's not enough just not to steal, but you mustn't covet other people's stuff either. So basically, you mustn't long for, desire, or lust after someone else's property. This is an odd one. It's different from the others. It's the only commandment that addresses an inner state of mind. There's no commandment not to hate someone or not to think about murdering them or even to have a strong desire to do so. But coveting someone's property, that's a big no-no. That's one of the big 10. I'm not sure why that is. You might well ask how someone can control such a feeling. And of course it's quaint how your neighbour's wife is included in the list of property. Don't worry, neighbour. I don't want your wife, and I don't have room for your ox or donkey in my apartment. I think the body corporate might have something to say about that too. There are some things notable for their absence in this list. It might have been good to have a commandment like this, for example, maybe even as number one. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall possess no slaves. Or maybe, you shall not rape. You shall not oppress minorities. Maybe even something like, you shall care for the planet. I don't know, it just seems that too much of the commandments is taken up by God worrying about how we treat him rather than about how people should treat each other. We don't really get anything about how people should relate to each other until number 5. And also, there are some serious loopholes in these commandments, as well as some serious omissions. I'm not sure the Ten Commandments greatly improves our lives together, but by all means, tack them up on the wall in the classroom. It's a later version of me here because before I uploaded this video, I decided that I would change the end a little bit. When I initially recorded the video, I added on to the end a series of other commandments, some 7 commandments, as a possible alternative to the 10 commandments. And I decided at that time not to tell anyone where those commandments came from. I would and have indeed put them in the description below. But I did subsequently think that some people might be a bit upset if I didn't tell them where these commandments came from. And so, in the interest of being fully open and fully honest, I'll tell you now that these 7 commandments come from the Satanic Temple. And I'll put a direct link to their source below as well. That saves anyone from feeling that they've been trapped into reading these dreadful things under false pretenses. So, if you don't want to see them, I suggest you stop the video now. But if it doesn't bother you, let it roll and you'll see them come up on the screen and they are reproduced in the description below.